And what we're talking about is that dramatic and profound, um, just the metamorphosis that happens from the time our kids step into the class and cross through that door, and then they cross the threshold of the door, and then 9 months later, after this gestation period of education, it happens, and we birth them out at the end of the school year. Sitting there and reflecting on all that's occurred, man. Like for me, that's always been an emotional moment.
Oh, it most certainly is. It's you want to see them do good, but you want them to stay in your classroom because
Yeah,
of that relationship you built.
yeah. It's that's the hardest part of that's the hardest part of like not being in the classroom anymore. Just being a part of their lives, and I do be the one thing where I'm in on campuses all the time and working with kids, but the difference is I'm just there for a day or two and then I'm gone. Like I don't get to be a part of their lives and know all the details of the little stories that happen, and just all the little stuff. Like that's where the magic is.
Yeah, that's the day to day in a classroom is just it's so varied. You can't predict what's going to happen. I mean, I can come in with a lesson plan for the week and a great scripted plan for the entire day, and something will set it off the rails. And that's what you have to be as a teacher. You have to be able to flex around that because we have to reach the kids where they are.
Yeah, yeah, so true. And that is the I think for me that when coming in as a new educator like you did 3 years ago, was there's for me the most important thing is getting connected with other great teachers on campus where you can, bounce ideas off of, and they can come and help and watch you teach and give you feedback. Was Were those people there for you?
Absolutely. The school I started in, we actually had shared doorways. And my
Uh,
door partner, Angela Holiday, she was amazing. She welcomed me right in. Anything you need, Mr. Tobin, come to me. And she took me around, started introducing me to everybody, and we built our teacher team, which we've called the Wolf Pack. And we still meet regularly and keep in touch on text message because we started relying on each other and we did things together, whether it was student council or the Junior Honor Society. We always worked together, and those relationships are what made you want to come to work every day because you had those people to count on, whether it was, hey, can you check this out and see if it's a great idea, or if you just needed to walk in their room and close the door and just, oh, I'm so frustrated today.
yeah. Yeah, those kinds of quality relationships among professionals. I think the most important part is designing those, because you have your core little cluster of groups of your homies at that school you're going to hang out with, and for
Mm-hmm.
me, the most important thing is creating and designing that relationship so it's a productive way. Because, like you were saying, man, if it's only a place where we're all going, "Oh my god, it's the worst," then it's never going to work out. But if like the way you guys have it set up as the wolf pack, and you're texting back and forth and supporting each other, and when one person's having a bad day, the other members are giving to that person. That's the way it should be.
Oh, feeding off of each other's energy it happens all the time, no matter what business you're in.
Yeah.
And if somebody's having a bad day, you can improve that day just by giving them a bit of your positivity.
Yeah. For me, that's the way those professional groups work, because, in our profession, it's unlike any other profession where, if you are a shoe salesman, and like you want to hang out with the best shoe salesman, like you want to kind of do what they do. And if there's some sort of somebody with a cancer type personality, we want to isolate ourselves from them. So don't rub. But in the teaching gig, man, we don't have that kind of privilege, because those people, they're still in front of kids. Like we can't isolate ourselves from them. We have to bring them into our group so we can have an impact, so they can go and do a better job for their kids. That's the challenge of this thing. That's why, so our core group of friends, those professional friends, those relationships we have, man, they have to be such a strong, positive connection so that we can bring those people in.
Absolutely. It's teaching is not something that you could do in isolation.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out well for you. It's not going to work out well for the kids because I can reach one kid and another teacher might be having an issue trying to reach that kid, and they can come to me and say, hey, what are you doing that I'm not doing?
Yeah. That is that is such a critical component of becoming a great educator, is having the courage and the vulnerability to be self-aware. Like, what do I need to do a better job at? Where can I be better for those kids? And I think why it's hard for it was for me. I was so overwhelmed with all the stuff I had to do, like how to take attendance and how to grade and assessment and 504 and doing ARDS and special ed and all that stuff. And oh, by the way, I'm supposed to teach them something. And in addition, and then like it takes years to get all that in place where you kind of you're not overwhelmed, and then at some point we have to be able to be at that point be self-aware. Okay, now what are the skills I need to improve upon?
Absolutely. And I know it's said all the time on the Facebook Lives with you that I've watched with many other people, but it's the authentic relationships, having that
Yeah.
authenticity. You can't force it. You can't walk in front of these kids and try to be someone you're not, because they're going to look at you and say, all right, who you think you're fooling, man?
Right.
You have to be yourself. And that's a big part of what I do in the classroom. I share my stories. I
Yeah.
talk about my report cards and how bad they were. I mean, heck, my parents kept everything, so I show them the report cards.
Yeah.
And it's about showing them that we've all gone through it. Teachers weren't hatched in an egg the day before school started. We've gone through all of this. We have that experience to share.
For me, that creates the foundation for phenomenal teaching, is for that kid to have a clear and accurate understanding of who you are as a person. I think years ago, we were able to do that thing back in the 70s and the 80s where, this is my class because I said so. I've got the big desk, you've got the small desk. That should tell you something. That whole thing. And but this is a day and a time where the kids, they need that one adult in front of them that's accepted the honor and privilege of standing before them every day, that they know exactly who they are and what they're about, so they can build a relationship, and that way they can learn.
It takes a little bit with my kids, but they start to realize that I never refer to it as my classroom. It's
Yeah.
always our classroom, it's our space. And while we do have certain policies and procedures that we follow, we build the in class guidelines ourselves. And we treat it as a living, breathing document
Yeah.
because it can change. Depending on personalities in the classroom, we may have to add something that says, no more talking like Mickey Mouse, or, please, if you need to stand up from your seat, do so quietly and sit back down in a timely manner.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's I always say, like, we want those kids to help become part of the architect team of the classroom, that the family that we're going to build inside of here. Like because this long gone, man, are the days where because I said so, that's why rule number 4, you know, but if they have some ownership in the procedures and the core classroom values that we're creating in that space together, we're just more likely to buy in since they have ownership.
That's important everywhere, just to have that ownership. Even as a teacher, it feels better when you have an administration that wants the teachers to be a part, wants them to be the guiding force inside a school.
Yeah.
I mean, I am blessed right now. The school I am currently teaching in, I'm teaching 8th grade science. We have an administrative team that is just absolutely amazing. They are focused, yes, on the students, but they want the teachers to have that input and to share with everybody what goes on inside the classroom.
Yeah. That's such a rare thing, man. You rarely hear that kind of, people bragging on their leadership team. And when I find it, it's awesome because it just makes the whole process of education go from a place of where it's bearable to a place where people are passionate about it and they want to be there. And when that happens, that's when magical moments in the classroom occur.
Yeah, definitely the desire to go to work every day is big in the teaching profession. If you see somebody slogging in like, oh man, here we go again,
Right.
you know that's the person you've got to steer clear of for the day, because don't mess up my vibe, man, because I want to be here. This is my house. This is where I live.
Yeah. Yeah. When you showed up and at, was there a point when you began teaching a few years ago and where you thought, oh my gosh, I found it, man. This is it.
Whew. I don't know if I can pinpoint one exact moment, but that first day that I was in the classroom and I took a deep breath and started with, "Hi, I'm Mr. Tobin. I'm going to be teaching you science for the rest of the year." It kind of felt like a natural thing to finally say.
Yeah.
Like I found it. Here I am. And as the first week ended, and then we started the second week, and the weeks became months, I got into this flow where I knew this is what I was meant to do. And I firmly believe I was meant to do it at this time in my life, because if I did it any earlier, I think I would have been too young to appreciate what I was doing.
Yeah. And so when the quarantine thing came down, a word came down that we're not going back, did you have it? Did you know, like, did you have an opportunity for closure? I know here in Texas, where I am, a lot of schools, it was during spring break. And so we said goodbye to the kids. I'll see you, in 10 days. And that was it. Did you have time for closure, or it was just over? And
It was over.
yeah,
We broke for spring break, and we were going to come back, and we had 17 days to review before the state tests.
yep,
And then we started coming to the end of spring break, and we're going to hold off for about 2 weeks. And then they added 2 weeks on top of that. And before the end of that second week, they ended up closing school for the rest of the year. So it was kind of, oh, but my kids,
yeah,
what are we going to do? How can we finish this out?
yeah. And so when word came down that we're going, there's a dog outside of my house freaking out. Maybe you can hear it. When word came down that we're not going back, we're going to do some online things. What what was the first step, man? Were you trying to get the Google Classroom together, the Zoom? What was on the forefront of your mind?
Trying to figure out how to teach the way I teach in an online setting. I'm a very active animated teacher.
Yeah,
I have a desk, but it kind of sits in the back of the classroom just gathering things, because I'm always up. I'm always moving. We're always getting our hands dirty. And how do I present that to the kids inside an online classroom?
right.
And so it's been trial and error as we go. And next week, I'm going to be moving more into investigations, common things around the house. How does airflow work? Grab a straw, grab a cotton ball, grab something, and let's investigate how this happens. I mean, simple ideas, but the science phenomena behind it is what I'm looking to draw out from them, and that's what our class is. I tell every student every year, I'm not here to give you the answers. I'm here to point you in the direction to find those answers.
Yeah. And as far as continuing that relationship with the kids, is that something that you have found a challenge doing online, or?
My kids, they're actually great. They are very engaged online, to the point where I have to turn off notifications on my phone at night because they keep popping in.
Yeah.
But I've also, our administrators, when we had our staff meeting last week on Zoom,
Right.
we we discussed reaching out to each of the families in our homerooms every week. So I'm making those calls every week and touching base with the families, make sure everybody's doing well, make sure everybody's staying safe, and finding out what I can do for them within my power to help them out.
Yeah, that's the critical part. Like I think those are the bricks that we build at the bottom, the base of this thing is making sure that well, two things. One, is there anything that we can have that we're not getting lunches, basic human needs. And then I think what parents are really craving for is just open, honest conversation of expectations. Like, what are we
Yes.
supposed to be doing? And in addition to that, maybe the third thing is just allowing for some grace during this time and understanding. Hey, man, we don't expect you to be a teacher. Like, you still have a job. We understand you're still parenting, and you're an employee somewhere for sure. And we don't expect you to be a world class homeschooler right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have three kids: kindergarten, second, fourth, and sixth grade.
Yeah,
And I mean, our day, I've got a schedule on the wall that I'm looking at right now. I mean, we start at 8 o'clock with online Zoom classes, and we go through clear till about 1:30, at which time they start their homework. And while that's happening here at this computer, I'm over here on my laptop attending my grade level meetings and our full staff meetings and our content level meetings and calling parents and getting on the Google Classroom, walking kids through that. So it gets kind of chaotic in here, but it's it's something we can work with because we are teachers.
yeah.
My wife spent a number of years teaching in Montessori settings, so she has the background as well. But when it's your kids, it's completely different.
It's way different.
So
Yeah,
we try our best, and it's keeping that communication line open with the teachers. Let them know, hey, I'm struggling. My son does not want to get on camera today. He is not happy about this. And just letting them know we are still going to push him, but we're not going to push him over the edge.
yeah,
And that's what I would suggest to all parents. Just take that time. Just be there for your kids and let them figure out how to cope with this. Help them along their journey, because this is something none of us had to deal with. And I spoke to my principal one-on-one the other day, and I said, if I had walked into your office in January and said, hey, can you outline your pandemic response plan for me?
right.
You probably would have looked at me and said I was crazy.
Yeah,
But yet here we are. And teachers, administrators, parents, we're all working together to figure out what we can do for these kids while we're in this situation. And it's overwhelming with joy. It's overwhelming with stress. But here we are, we're making it work.
for me, man, I think as an educator, probably if looking from the perspective of a teacher right now, because of overwhelming joy, overwhelming stress, all the information, everything, it's that onslaught, not just academic stuff, but from the news and just every media source. I think it's really important right now to take a moment, everyone, and to dig down deep into the emotions of what is it that we really want for our students as a result of this, what's happening right now, whether it's online or we're sending packets or we're driving by the kid's house, whatever method. In some of these small schools, there are buses driving to where these kids live, and teachers are sitting on the steps of the bus having class right there on the side of the road. And as a result of all this, what is the lesson that we want these kids to think about? Because, brother, this generation, like, this is their Great Depression that our grandparents
Oh, yeah.
talked about, or a war that my father talked about, or 9/11, or here in Houston, Harvey, and Louisiana, Katrina. Like, this is their moment that they'll talk about for decades, in a half a century from now. And the question is, like, when the kid looks back and think, man, you know what it was about Tobin? I'll never forget that dude, because here's why. During that time, here's what he said. And, like, what is that for you, for every teacher? I think that deserves a moment to dig down deep and really be able to articulate that for our kids.
It's I've heard 9/11 being brought up a bunch of times on the news. And when I started working at the Boys and Girls Club as a preschool phys ed teacher in the after school program, 9/11 happened while I was there.
Yeah.
And the biggest fear for us as educators in that setting was, are these kids going to be picked up at the end of the day? Because we were in Westchester County, New York,
Mm.
and a lot of our families commuted to New York City. So we're walking around with the smile on our face, but in the back of everybody's mind was, please, please, I want everybody's parent to show up today. And now here I am at the beginning of my teaching career almost, and we have another crisis going on. So what I would like my kids, my children, and my students to take away from this is that everybody who was important in their lives, whether it was their parents or their teachers or their administrators or their coaches, that they took that time to check in on us because they cared so much.
Yeah.
And they just stood tall for us.
I think you're right, man. Like serving as that adult of influence that is consistently, relentlessly there for that kid. And this is a time where, brother, since we're not in our classroom families anymore, and we're not in the hallways, we're not hanging out in the cafeteria with kids, because it's online or on a postcard or written on a packet. Like, they have to hear the words. When we're together, we can show it. There's a zillion ways that we can show how much we care about them and how connected we are. But when it's online or something like this, like, they have to hear those words. I care about you. I believe in you. I'm proud of you. I appreciate you. I love you. They have to hear all those words.
Absolutely. It's always nice to hear from somebody influential to you that they're thinking about you. Hey, I just wanted to take 5 minutes and give you a phone call, check to see how you're doing. Are you working well with the Google Classroom? Do you need any help with anything? Should we schedule a Zoom meeting? I can walk you through this. No, how about your family?
Yeah.
You guys have everything you need. You have bread, you have milk, you have butter. You guys got toilet paper? Because I got some. I can run a roll over if you need. Any little thing that you can do for the kids and families will be appreciated.
Yeah, it's true, man. Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate all you're doing, and just the fact that you, after a background of a variety of careers and life experiences, I'm so glad that you came to this one and you found it and you love it and you're passionate. And let me ask you this, man: are you staying? You sticking with it? You're going to go off and do something else?
I am absolutely planning on sticking with it.
Nice.
It's funny. I kind of fell into the science teacher position because they needed a science teacher, but I hated science growing up. So the one thing that I always said was, I am going to teach science completely opposite from the way that I was taught science.
Yes.
I want this to be fun. I want you to like science. And I have a support system. The Arizona Science Center out here is amazing. And they have a science teacher residency program that I've been blessed to be a part of for 2 different sessions now. And it's a totally immersive way of learning the content to present to the students, but also learning different methods to present it. Methods which I didn't even learn in the classroom when I was getting my degree. And they give us the role of being a student and saying, hey, you are playing the part of the student now. You have to figure this out the same way your students are. And those lessons that I've learned through them were just amazing. And my support coach, who I've seen her name pop up in comments, so she's here watching this now. She's just been great throughout this pandemic, beforehand, just taking the time to make sure that I have everything I need to continue on being a teacher and becoming the greatest teacher I can be.
Yeah. It's awesome. This profession is filled with just so many amazing, beautiful human beings just doing such heroic work for other teachers, for kids, for communities. It's awesome. Hey, brother, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. I really, really appreciate you.
Hal, it's been a pleasure, man.
I will do it again, man. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Take care, brother.